Today, a pair of Stanford medical professors say the COVID-19 death toll estimates may be orders of magnitude too high. If only there were other people who may have been sounding that alarm. Also, drama over the coronavirus relief bill. We have got the latest for you, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Happy Friday. I am joined today by Stu Bergier of Stu Does America, who is the other expendable host here in the studio today.
That's me, expendable.
We're just sitting here coughing on each other, so it's fine.
Been lots of fun.
What could possibly go wrong? Also joined by Jaco Booyens for the second day in a row, filmmaker extraordinaire, fellow of the Falkirk Center, Jaco Booyens, who also brought chocolate eggs for our 500th episode yesterday to celebrate. Because
Today's 501, but I'm a little late, but here it is.
No, we appreciate it. Well, it's funny because the producer was like, I made this graphic for you, but I can't really come in the studio to bring you guys cake. So happy 500th.
So I figured five of us in the building, 5 eggs, it works.
Yeah, there you go. Well, but we'll have to bust them open later. All right, let's get into, I know you guys are shocked that the topic of the day is the coronavirus.
What?
Yeah, it's this new virus that just came out.
Where did it come from?
China.
Racist.
The China virus, the Chinese virus. So yesterday, Stu, we talked about how, and I think you may have something to add on this, because we talked about the Imperial College study and how there was the headline that they admitted that they were wrong. I heard you on radio this morning, though, and I did see Neil Ferguson's, it's Ferguson, right? I did see his tweets where he said, No, I never said that I was wrong.
Oh, did he tweet about it?
He did.
Okay, I didn't see that. I did not see that. I just happened to be, because I've been going back and forth and looking at what he said. And to be clear, I think he's wrong. I have, of course, no expertise in the field at all, so it doesn't make any difference. But usually with every situation, right, the worst case scenario is usually not the one that comes true. And I from the second this started, I was very nervous about trusting this one model. Yeah. Forget what the model says.
Basing the entire country's policy on one model.
Entire world's policy, it seems like, on one model. That made me very nervous from the beginning. And I always, the idea that it was a worst case scenario like that comes true, I'm always skeptical of that. That's just sort of a natural skepticism. But looking at his comments, and I wanted to make sure I really understood it, because at first, the way I heard them was that he had these really high death estimates. For example, Great Britain, 500,000 if we do nothing, and now he's saying it's 20,000. Well, that's a big difference.
Kind of a discrepancy.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
A little bit.
But I was like, well, maybe he's saying because they implemented these really strict policies, that's the reason why he's cutting it. However, he did say the 260,000 was for mitigation. The difference here basically being, long and the short of it, to not bore everyone to death, is that there's two different approaches he presented, which was mitigation and suppression. And so mitigation is more like the thing a lot of people on the right have been talking about as the ideal for this thing. Like, look, when people get sick, we'll isolate them. When if you're elderly or if you're in a danger area with pre-existing conditions, you guys do social distancing. Everyone else kind of goes along and does their life, except is careful and washes their hands more. That is the mitigation, and what he was saying with 260,000 people dead. What Britain and what we're doing is actually much closer to what he called suppression, which is everybody is social distancing. We are isolating completely and quarantining anyone who's sick and the family members of those who are sick and all the things that we are all dealing with on a daily basis. So it didn't strike me. It doesn't mean he's right by any means, but I don't think the way it was reported, which was he was, abandoning his old projections. He admits that he was wrong. That's not exactly what he was doing. He was just saying, thank God you guys listened to me. Now it's only going to be 20,000.
However,
which is still, again, he.
And could I ask, have you known many scientists to just outwardly admit, yeah, we got that run wrong?
Yeah, no, it's not all that common. The good thing about this is one of the things. This is a terrible story, and I hate it. And you're right, I hate talking about it. I said this on my show last night. I'm so tired of coming in here every day and talking about the coronavirus.
Could you guys do something really crazy and interesting and get picked up by the news so we can talk about you?
Exactly.
That'd be great.
Please do something.
We're really tired of it. It's all that we can find.
I know. Do some work out there. We're working hard for you. Do some work for us. Screw up. Do somebody do have a major scandal or
Don't
something?
have to screw up. Go play flag football in the public.
Yes,
there you go. I like that. That's
Get the
it.
cops
So we can
called
play
on
football,
you.
flag football.
I love it.
Make the tail like 6 feet.
Yeah, there you go. Social distancing in flag football would be a challenge.
Yeah, come on.
You know, you're right. Like most of the time, they try to come up with a way of justifying. Though it's a situation where I think we just want to make sure that we're getting it right, obviously. And what I like about the story, and it's a very tiny part because I don't like most of it, but what I do like about it is, unlike global warming, where in 10 years they can say, oh, well, we just got new estimates and we forget about what we said 10 years ago. Well, we can all look at this, and they said basically 2 weeks from now is when they expect this thing to peak. They've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. You know, and if they are right, we're going to see major breakouts. You can even argue maybe not here because we're doing the suppression thing, and I think we're doing a relatively good job at it. You know, most people are paying attention to that. But places like Mexico, who are doing absolutely nothing, where they're still, as of just a week or so ago, we're doing soccer matches with 50,000 people at them. We're doing campaign events where the president's going around, he's kissing babies, he's hugging people, he's shaking hands, he's doing everything, taking selfies. All that stuff is going on in about 2/3 of the world. So we're going to know whether these guys were right or not to see, because if it goes crazy in other parts of the world and it's okay here, we're going to have to give them a hell of a lot of credit. If it comes up as, you know, look, it's a minor health issue and does not wind up being a major thing, I think we're going to learn something. And it's going to be twofold. One, we're going to be a little more skeptical next time we get big projections. And two, God forbid something is really bad, we're probably not going to believe it, which could, because it's not.
This is why you don't cry wolf.
This is why you don't cry wolf. And look, I don't know. You know, I'm still at this point where I don't necessarily think there was a bad intent by these guys. Like, and we may still find out that they were right. But you got to be careful with this stuff. Because now that we've taken this sort of action, we all know that these things are legitimately real in world history, and we will get one eventually. I don't know how we're going to react next time. If this turns out to be nothing around the world, I don't know if we're going to react at all. And that could be even more dangerous.
And to add to that, Yaku, so now we've got some people saying, okay, this Imperial College study doesn't look like it's going to pan out. Plus, we've got these Stanford professors who are medical doctors, by the way, because I keep hearing, we should listen to the doctors. Well, I don't think the doctors are solely responsible for making economic policy for the very reason that they're doctors. But here are two doctors who work for Stanford who say, we probably should not have shut down the entire economy over this, particular projection that we're using. Now, they say that because the United States and other countries largely focus their testing on symptomatic patients, the number of people who are infected is likely much larger than the number of confirmed cases, which
Definitely
I feel
true.
like that's what we've all been saying this entire
100%.
time, which means the virus's mortality rate is likely significantly lower than they projected. So they're just saying, guys, you can't, if we're saying that most people are asymptomatic, you can't rely on these numbers that we're getting if we're only testing symptomatic patients. I'm like, okay, finally some doctors are saying it, but it's like, I've been hearing this, I've been repeating it, and nobody wants to listen, and everyone says, let the doctors make the decisions. Like, okay, well, these are doctors, so what now?
Now you got doctors and scientists, you got politicians, you got the president saying, hey, I'm going to open this country up by Easter, and they're saying, why? Maybe, just maybe, we actually have some people in our country that actually know what they're doing, but they're getting a lot of opposition. You just said something. We're all going to die. Was the messaging. Yeah. It's so fatal. The virus is so dangerous. We're all going to die.
Or at least.
And that's what shut everything down. If you went in and said, listen, a lot of us are going to get sick. A lot of us are going to get the flu.
Right.
Some will die. You know what happened in January? Schools were shut down independently, one school at a time around this country for flu outbreak. They shut a school down that had the virus. They cleaned the school up. 6 days later, school was up and running. They didn't shut the town down or the whole state of Ohio, for crying out loud. Way overkill from day one. Because, like Stu said in the beginning, the second I heard the subliminal messaging, oh, we're all going to die, I was like, overblown. Not happening. This is not how the world ends. The world does not end with corona. Okay? It's going to hit some people, but the fact that so many is asymptomatic, the fact that some of us may have had it and didn't even know it. College students may have had it as a cold and just there it goes, right? Now you're getting people coming out saying, like Stanford. It's interesting that it's Stanford, though. I like that it is, Stanford. It's not a smaller school somewhere. No, it's Stanford. Liberal,
it's not
way
University
left.
of Phoenix.
No
disrespect to people who graduated from University of Phoenix. I find it to be totally accredited. I'm just saying.
No,
other people would poke holes in it.
Wow, I don't know what that's too. I don't know.
I didn't realize.
Shot fired.
Come on already.
Shot
Bash the for-profit universities on the conservative show. Nice work. Jeez.
No, but I'll say this. That it is a liberal school. It is a school with the medical staff at that school leans towards the left. And them coming out, it
Good luck poking holes
shows
in
me
it.
a little silver lining, Stu, of some sanity returning, because we've been out of control in this country since 2016 with sanity check. Sanity has left many people, and now it's a little bit of sanity's coming back and saying, okay, settle down, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the things, and to be clear, the things you just pointed out, and you said we got to listen to doctors. That's what the doctors were saying. This is what the scientists were saying. They were saying the entire time that the mortality rate was going to be lower. I did a whole segment on it. It was one of the first days, really, coronavirus was really big in the news, and it was when Donald Trump came out and said, "I think it's going to be around less than 1%." I did a whole thing on it, quoting scientist after scientist after scientist, with all the research indicating that yes, it was going to be less than 1%. That hasn't even been disagreed upon largely by the scientific community. Who's been disagreeing with that is the media.
Yeah. Yes.
The media is coming out.
We're not covering it.
We're not covering
entirely.
it. They don't talk about the 1% people. They go and they bash Donald Trump for it when Anthony Fauci, who has written the exact same thing, says the same thing, which is obviously where Trump got it.
Right.
Like, you don't think Trump is doing his own disease modeling, do you?
Come on.
He's not. He's listening to Fauci, and he's saying it's going to be, it's probably going to be around 1%, but we don't know.
Right.
And that uncertainty is important. Look, if it comes down to, I've kind of always thought that maybe it ends around a 0.3, 0.4% mortality rate, still probably about double the normal flu or a very bad seasonal influenza. They still think it's going to be more contagious than the flu is. So you combine a higher death rate, even if it's only by a tiny bit, and a higher spread rate, that could wipe out 100,000 people, right?
Like that is the world economy
down.
But
do you shut down the world economy, especially the way it was doing it?
Yeah,
so we don't. If that's where I think it's going to be. Again, I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. The high-end estimates are scary. So I've kind of landed, I'd love to hear what you guys think of this, but I've kind of landed in the point of where I kind of think Trump has handled this pretty well. Where he hasn't been, when he, at the very first, gasp of this, he was a little bit kind of flippant about it. Kind of wound up, I think, recognizing that it was pretty serious, took pretty dramatic steps, and has made really restrictive recommendations. That has given us time to build up supplies, to start testing, to do lots of things. We're going to come to the end of this 15 days. He's going to reassess and look forward with a hopeful optimism to get the people back to work as fast as possible. I mean, it's going to cost us a lot of money, and you hate if we were wrong. Obviously, that's a huge thing. If it was only going to kill a couple of people, and this is going to wind up being a big mistake just from the monetary perspective. But when the worst case is really bad and also really near, right? Not 50 years into the future, 2 weeks. Well, maybe we can make this work for 2 weeks, and then we can assess and say, okay, this isn't coming to the worst case scenario. We now know it's just a really bad seasonal flu. Let's move on with our lives and really focus on taking care of the people who get it.
Which I really think is what his plan was all along. Yes, he was slow walking in the beginning, but isn't that prudent?
Everyone was,
but isn't that prudent though? Gather information, get intel. You can't act. But once he pulled the trigger, I think he's doing a fantastic job. And when I say the president, I mean the team. The team around him, those supporting me, Dr. Birx and everybody else, right? They're doing a great job. Vice President slow walked it and then said, okay, now we're going to take it serious. We're going to take action, But then he also set a target as to when I think this ends. It wasn't open-ended. It wasn't 18 months or we'll see. It was like, no, 14 days. Day 15, we're reassessing. That's smart business decision. Someone asked the other day, who would you want as your CEO if you ran a big company today, if you own a big company? Would you want Trump as your CEO? Would you want Bernie as your CEO? Would you want Biden as your CEO?
Oh gosh,
take Trump as your CEO.
No doubt.
He's running the country like you run a company.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a great job.
I will also like to just say too, I feel like it's a difficult line to walk. Now, I'm not saying maybe he handled it completely correctly at the very beginning, but you also don't want to go out there and say, yeah, we're all probably going to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you have to say, you have to control the idea of, mass chaos.
Yeah.
Thinking that you're all going to die. So I do understand the difficult line that you have to walk when you're trying to say, like, all right,
Definitely.
calm down. It's not a big deal. And when you have someone who just kind of speaks off the cuff, who doesn't always use a prompter, you get misunderstood like
Nobody's
that.
done this
But
before.
I understand his point in that what is the point of just making people panic and think that they're all going to die?
Yeah, you don't want that to happen. I mean, I think, saying, look, there's 15 cases, it's going to be down to 0 real soon was probably not a good thing, especially at that point.
Right.
But
that's
again,
Donald Trump speaking off the cuff.
Exactly. And you know what? You got much worse things said by people like Andrew Cuomo much later. Andrew Cuomo was saying that they were sending, local New York officials were sending people out to parades and stuff in mid-March. I mean, Andrew Cuomo was saying that the panic, this is not Ebola, the panic is way overblown, I don't think it's warranted. This is like March 15th, he's saying these things, much later than Trump was saying them. But I'm curious as to and I think, Sarah, you'd be a good representative because you've been pretty skeptical of this generally. Yeah. I mean, Trump has taken massive steps. The reason why we're all shut down nationwide largely is because of Donald Trump's recommendation. Was he too much? Should he not have done that from your perspective?
I am fine with the recommendation. I think the recommendation was good. I don't like the forced shelter in places.
Right. Yes.
That's what I have a problem with.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no problem with the recommendations. Advising people to make sure to be washing your hands, make sure to social distance, make sure to do all of that. I think that was smart, and I don't think he should have been flippant and said, yeah, just live your life.
Right.
Like I didn't expect him to say that.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the local governments and the state governments taking it too far and forcing people to stay. Or else the police are going to question them, and whatever else they've been doing. It varies by state. That's what I have a problem with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They took liberty. He made recommendations. He said from the start we're a nation set up for small government. So local government is going to go local, then state, then federal. I'm not federally going to tell you what to do and not to do, but I'm recommending. I'm going to declare national emergency so we can get some funding appropriated. But I'm going to recommend some things, and then across this country, the far left jumped on that thing and they started shutting things down. I was literally in Ohio. I was speaking at the University of Akron. At 5 p.m. they shut that school down after Ohio State shut down. And then the governor came and said, we're shutting down. Trump never called for businesses to stop shutting down business. He said, hey, let's be smart. 10 people, 20, it was 50, 250, 50, 25, 10, right? But it wasn't federally saying, no, we're federally shutting this country down, we're declaring martial law. No, this is local politicians, judges. Dallas County, it's a judge.
And also, on top of that, a lot of private businesses, right? Private, like the NBA was not told by anybody to do that. They just did it. And I think like that shows a real positive of the country, but also like in this experiment we're all involved in small government and self-government, you see how many people took it upon themselves to actually just pay attention to this. Like we could still go out and do a lot more than we're doing. We're trying to make sure that we do the best steps that we can to keep everybody healthy. And generally speaking, obviously spring break's an exception, people licking toilet seats occasionally. But other than that, people have pretty much followed these recommendations, and I think it has helped.
Yeah. All right, the coronavirus relief bill. Oh, you won't believe the drama that happened on the floor of the House when we come back. Yeah, it drove me nuts. I did it appears the coronavirus relief bill has passed in the House. Now, that was not without the typical drama that you would imagine took place in the House. But it was interesting because it did pass the Senate 96-0, which would indicate to me that it was bipartisan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about the whole 96-0 thing
Pelosi was so upset.
that makes me think that it was Republicans and Democrats, regardless of how you feel about whether or not the bill was good or warranted or included too much pork. Both parties voted for it. Now, you wouldn't realize that if you were just watching AOC take the floor today in protest of the bill. Now, she's complaining that it's all the Republican majority that got together and wanted to create, this bill for corporations. And I really think that she took one too many drama classes, theatrical classes, before taking the floor for this speech. Watch.
What did the Senate majority fight for? One of the largest corporate bailouts with as few strings as possible in American history. Shameful. The greed of that fight is wrong for crumbs, for our families. And the option that we have is to either let them suffer with nothing or to allow this greed and billions of dollars, which will be leveraged into trillions of dollars, to contribute to the largest income inequality gap in our future. There should be shame about what was fought for in this bill and the choices that we have to make.
Now, I have to say, she probably does that better than my 7-year-old. The whole temper tantrum thing and the pounding of the arms and the feet. I think she does have that down better than my 7-year-old.
But emotionally, that's where she's stuck, though.
It is. It is. That is where she is more mature than her, mentally and emotionally speaking. Still,
she really comes off when she does that type of shtick that she does. It seems like almost like high school drama-ish type of vibe. Like it doesn't feel like she even knows what she's talking about. Or it almost feels like she's like memorized lines. And
she's rehearsed it how many times in the mirror do you think? Right?
a lot of times.
A ton of times.
Look, a huge chunk of this money is just going directly to people. Like, so I don't know, like she's like, oh, well, billions of dollars would be leveraged into trillions. Well, what else do you want the dollars to do? You want them to go down in value? Wouldn't you want them, even if you're giving $1,200 to the average person, don't you hope maybe they can turn it into more if they invest it? Or I don't even understand the argument. Yes, there was some money that went to corporations, but I guess, as you pointed out, they freaking employ people. Right, like they're the reason why these salaries are getting paid. So if you leave only the big companies and you leave them without any access, and I believe most of the money that's going to corporations in a general sense, they're not giveaways, they're loan guarantees. Yes. So that's like unlike smaller businesses. So if you have 50 people, or even this company size, in theory, if we we're thinking about laying everybody off. Instead of that, what they want us to do is to take the money from the federal government, pay all of our employees, and then if we pay all of our employees and hit these standards, it will no longer be a loan. Right. We will get a giveaway, essentially, because we're a smaller company. A bigger company doesn't have that. They're actually getting less out of this deal than a smaller company would, which I think is probably the right balance. Again, this is a terrible, terrible thing that we have to do this at all, especially considering we had such a strong economy just so recently. But
isn't that, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah. I was listening to,
incredible.
I went back and I was listening to a podcast,
it's going to come back.
where it was, it's a weekly podcast, and I missed a couple episodes. Yeah. You go back a couple weeks and they're just like, well, the economy's so great, Trump's going to cruise to re-election. It's like, wait a minute, now we're both $2 trillion and they want to do it with unanimous consent? They don't even want to vote on record. It's really shocking, but I guess this is where we live now. This is the reality of our situation.
96-0, her people voted as well. Right. So she's waving a finger only at the Republicans.
She's saying the Senate majority did this and this and this and this. Well, why did your entire party vote for it?
96-0. It wasn't a 60-40, whatever. It's 96-0, right? So number one. And then secondly, there's things in that bill us Republicans don't like either. Okay? That your people fought for, AOC. There's things that you wanted into that bill that would have been detrimental. And by the way, Nancy wanted to stop the bill to put more of your stuff into the bill. So let's not, let's not kid around here.
Right, like if you're a mid-sized company and you get part of this money, you cannot oppose unions organizing. That is not a Republican offer. That's
a huge giveaway.
A lot of these things are going to wind up being disasters. 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this thing as a complete disaster. We all know it.
I don't like that we have to do it at all.
I'm with you on that.
And if you listen clearly to her, she said, crumbs for our family. She expects money. I don't expect money from the government, just to tell you right now. I never do. I don't. Right? Because it's not who I am. I'm a capitalist, right? I don't expect a handout. They do.
Well, that's what they're fighting for.
Always.
Handouts for all. Now, that wasn't the only dramatic moment. We also had, of course, Thomas Massie, who was under fire by the president. I want to get your thoughts on that. But he tweeted out yesterday, the Senate did some voodoo, just like with Obamacare, took a House bill dealing with taxes, stripped every word, and put their bill in it. The House is just as responsible for killing the origination clause as the Senate. It's the House's job to reject the process. $2 trillion plus $4 trillion equals $6 trillion stimulus. $6 trillion divided by 350 million citizens equals 17,000 per citizen. Times a family of 4, that's a lot of math in there, Mr. Massie. Equals 68,000 per family of new national debt and dollar devaluation in this stimulus. Not a good deal. He also suggested that he would require a quorum of lawmakers to be present to vote. And of course, cited the Constitution because he is a constitutionalist.
Yes.
This is his angle. Just the Constitution, you know, the entire document that our whole country was based upon. Donald Trump did not like that. Donald Trump did not like that at all.
He did not. He doesn't. He's not a big fan of Massie, apparently now. You know, look, there's absolutely no doubt that Thomas Massie is right on this argument. It is in the Constitution that you have to have a quorum to hold the vote. There's no question about that. What they do to get around that is they'll be up there and there'll be one congressperson there, and they'll say, oh, that looks like 218 people, and they go for the vote. That is legitimately what they do. They just ignore it. Now, look, can he overlook that and go along with it when he knows this was obviously going to pass eventually, and he was only going to be able to delay it for a few hours? Look, yes, he could have, and most people did. Do I like the fact that there's somebody who actually looks at the freaking document and says, hey, this is not allowed? Because it is blatantly unconstitutional what they were trying to do with that. And it's the biggest spending bill in our history. Do you believe we wouldn't have had a vote on $2 trillion of spending? Like, that is obviously insane. Yeah. We all know that time is of the essence here, and I'm sure that's what, you know, Trump was feeling, and it is important. I just can't imagine, you know, the government's not efficient enough anyway. A day or two being a delay or a few hours, I don't think is going to make that much of a difference. You know what? Get your asses back to Washington and vote on the damn bill if you want to spend $2 trillion. Yeah. That shouldn't be that big of an ask.
Yeah. Yaku, President Trump tweeted, looks like a third-rate grandstander named Representative Thomas Massie, a congressman from, unfortunately, a truly great state, Kentucky, wants to vote against the new Save Our Workers bill in Congress.
That's a wrong sentence right
there. He just wants the publicity. He can't stop it, only delay, which is both dangerous and costly. Workers and small businesses need money now. He said, win back the House, but throw Massie out of the Republican Party. Oh, I don't like that.
No, look, I think there's a little bit of Mitt Romney reflux, right? Okay, a little bit of Mitt Romney reflux here of, look, he couldn't stop it. Mm-hmm. And I think to give credit where credit's due and benefit of the doubt to the president, to say, listen, he's probably coming from the angle of saying you couldn't stop it, you could only delay it.
Totally.
Why do this in public? In Massie's point of view, with you, I am a constitutionalist too, right? And saying he probably felt like, I got to say something, I got to say it now, or I wouldn't live with my conscience, you know? And so, but I understand where the president comes from, and he's being President Trump. He's going to speak his mind. He's going to roll off his sleeve. But I think it's a little bit Romney reflux to say, oh, here's another one. Oh, you want the limelight. We're not doing this for us. We're doing this for the people. Why do you make it about you?
Totally different perspective, though, too, than Romney. I mean, he's opposing these things on totally different grounds.
Yeah, Romney seems to have just flipped parties entirely.
Yeah, right.
No, and I'm not comparing the two. I'm talking just from
you're right.
Of that knee-jerk of like,
that's what he does. Yeah, this is how
final hour you're going to do what?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know? No, and look, I understand it. I don't understand why 96 senators can make it back to Washington, but we can't get 218 congressmen back. There's no reason why. They just all wanted to stay home.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the answer to this. Like that's not a good enough reason to break the Constitution. Trump is right. You're right. Everybody's right that this was going to pass anyway. And honestly, like, it wouldn't have shocked me if Massie voted for it.
Right.
But the point is, you can't just ignore the Constitution. We do it all the time. And I would even be fine if they were to say, look, this time, let's do unanimous consent, and I want to vote about whether we can do this again, right? Like, let's get on the record whether we can just have these votes without any House people there.
I agree with you, but don't you think there's been a run up though, guys, of us ignoring the Constitution?
Oh yeah.
For the last 3.5, 4 years, especially last year, and we said this when they came up with this farce, impeachment story, and say you're opening Pandora's box where we're gonna avoid and walk around the Constitution in this country, and you're going to see it happen a lot. At some point, somebody does need to stand up and go, time out.
Yeah, I mean, you could say maybe not at this moment. I mean, look, you're going to throw him out of the party. I don't think that's a good idea. He's a really reliable vote on a lot of really good things, and is one of the bravest people in Congress. The idea that he's going to get good publicity out of this is insanity. there's like 2 people on earth who are defending them, and it's probably not even people in his own family. Massie is going to get absolutely lit up by both Republicans and Democrats. And look at what's happened with Justin Amash, right? Like, and even the Democrats don't like what Massie did here because they wanted all the money too. That's right. So this is not going to make him popular. He wasn't doing it for publicity. He was doing it for constitutional reasons. You could argue whether he should have waited a couple weeks to make that point, I guess.
All right, back in a minute. It is frustrating though because, you look at Democrats are.
It's what happens.
Let's talk 2020. Just give ourselves a bit of a serious coronavirus break. So Joe Biden, he is, he's kind of hiding out. He probably, he's one of the subset of people who is more at risk for having serious reaction to the coronavirus. So rightfully so, probably. He's hiding out in his house. And he decided to have a virtual happy hour live stream. Now, he is, he's I guess I should just still say the front runner for the Democratic candidate. I don't know what's going to happen at the convention that they're still going to have, by the way. Everyone else is canceling their events. Conventions on both sides are still set to happen. So who knows what's going to happen there. But he's still the front runner by far. So you would think that it's like, okay, cool. That would be really fun for Democrats to attend. Not so much. According to Bo Erickson of CBS, there were 2,800. Yeah. I almost said 1,000. That's just the 2,800 simultaneous viewers throughout the chat for the front runner of the Democratic Party. Someone else mentioned they had to disable the comments because most people were not, in fact, riding with Biden. So that's an awkward moment where his staff is like, "Oh crap, guys, disable, make them stop, commenting." They're saying not nice things. This continues to perplex me that Joe Biden is the front runner of the Democratic Party. And we kept saying this. It's like, if he is reacting like this, he's having these gaffes at the beginning of this thing. How does he last throughout this thing? Because every week that passes, he just gets worse and worse and worse at this. You'd think maybe now that he's at home, he's getting better sleep, he's not traveling. He's not getting any better, Stu.
No. I was on with Stephen Crowder yesterday, and on his YouTube live feed, there was more than 10 times as many people who were watching Joe Biden, which is really sad. Really sad. And no offense to Stephen, of course, but he's a Democratic frontrunner. Should probably have a big audience there. It's funny because there's this really weird thing going on the prediction markets, which is always an interesting thing to check out. Where Joe Biden, as of this moment, if you look at any model of how this would go in a normal election, is 99% plus. Like only like a cataclysmic event would sideline him from winning this thing at this point. Bernie would have to clean up inexplicably. Yeah. However, he is I think 77% on the prediction markets right now. There is a huge, there's a few percent for Bernie, I think Cuomo's second now, inexplicably, even though, who knows where that comes from in his performance level. But people are really thinking that Joe is he looks so bad that he's just going to either stop, cite health reasons, something like that, get forced out by the party. Every single time he goes on television, he looks worse. It really is sad. I think a 2008 Biden running now would be much, much easier. And he wasn't great then, but they
were hiding him then. As I told you in a break, they were hiding him as a VP. You couldn't see him in this country. They didn't want him in front of the cameras. Yeah. He's got a really bad team around him. I'll tell you this, even if your player is weak and you support the player with a good team, the player can pull through. This is his team's recommendation. Okay, people came to him and said, "Joe, got a great idea. We're going to have a happy hour," because that's what they wrote. We're going to pull the millennials in. And 2,800. Do you know that on the same day, Bernie did a live stream FaceTime and had 7,000 show up? Three times Joe's numbers on the same. And so I think the public perception of this guy looks unelectable. This guy doesn't look healthy. This guy doesn't look. You're going to put this guy up against Donald Trump, who dismantled Hillary Clinton, the most seasoned politician in our generation, probably.
Also the most hated.
Most hated, yes. But still, she can hold her own. She, What's he going to do? I think that's where you see that discrepancy from 99 to 70%. And people are going, now, how does that happen? Party removes him, or literally the guy just crashes.
Yeah.
Becomes unelectable, where the party goes.
And you hate to see, I mean, regardless of whether or not you agree with this
policy, you don't want to see that.
You hate to see, you know, what, 40-year veteran politician go out like that.
No, of course. Yeah.
I mean, you'd like to see him just step down and live out his remaining life in the private sector.
Yeah, and really, like, and this is a weird way of saying this, but like, this couldn't have played out better for Biden. The idea, like, the best way Joe Biden should be able to run a campaign is in the middle of a pandemic. He can't go out in front of people. He can't be in front of cameras that don't know he's there. He doesn't get caught on an iPhone saying stupid crap. All you have to do is set him up in his home and let him read speeches, and then you can record all of them, and if he screws them up, do it over.
So I tell you, he has a bad team. He's got a really bad team around him.
You know, I go back and forth on that because I think part of that is, I think like the live stream is a great example. I think that's just a bad decision, right? Yeah. Don't do it. Part of it, though, is you saw in that the video where he was walking through where the auto workers were, or I think it was auto workers, right?
Yeah.
And he was got in the fight with that one guy. His handlers are trying to stop him.
He shushes
her.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so I think they're like, as any I think political advisor would say, like, this is a great opportunity for you to run that kind of standard campaign where you're not really in front of people. You're very controlled. Let's keep this simple. We'll make it. It's going to be a referendum on Trump anyway. Just don't make any mistakes. This is the best possible thing that could happen to him as far as running that campaign. But he seems to want to say, like, oh, people say I've lost it. Well, I'll show you I haven't lost it. Watch this. I'll go in front of the camera right now. Get it out. And that. Those are the moments
and maybe
where
it's not his team. Maybe you make a point. Maybe it's not his team. Maybe he overrules all of them. But I'll just tell you right now, if you sat with me today and say Joe Biden is going to have a happy hour, period, right? And he's going to invite people. I go,
like, no.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. Yes.
Time out, man. Really bad idea. Okay?
Yeah. That's
Even if you say Trump was going to have a happy hour, I don't want to see a next president or a presidential candidate have a happy hour. Who was it that had the foam in the guy's mouth or whatever?
Oh, yeah, Andrew Yang.
Andrew, same situation, like, bad idea, bro. Let's not go there. Not go there.
Well, I will say, I think the outreach staffer of Joe Biden's, who is the best, is Wilfred.
Oh, yes, from Sun City, Florida. Yes.
Wilfred he's a keeper.
He's been calling on the Glenn Beck program. I've heard that a few times.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. Back in a minute.
He's an older guy for a youth.
He's still got it, though.
Oh, yeah.
He's very hip.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day that was saying how the Babylon Bee has become real life, and it showed a Babylon Bee satirical post that was like, pants sales down after people working from home, like they're not wearing pants anymore. Right. They're just video conferencing from here up, and then it showed that Walmart actually has not, like, their pants sales are down because people are not wearing pants while they're in self-quarantine. Here is a Texas man who decided to have some fun with it. It's Friday, right? It's the end of the show, so let's have some fun. He decided to model his quarantine fashions in his own little runway. Watch this.
Welcome to the Quarantine Runway Show. Look at him ready to spend days in the house with that beautiful traditional Ethiopian robe. Opening it up, white t-shirt and shorts, very casual look, just in case the AC is blowing. A little spin and a flare, and away he goes. Yes, what do we have next? Oh, just in case he wants to do a little home workout, he has the sweats going and the wife beater action. Okay, about to tuck it in with a snap of the waistband and a clap he goes. Yes. Oh, now you want to open it up, get a little win and a kick goodbye there.
Yeah.
What do we have? Oh, nice little outfit to run outside and then a fist of word to grab those items, but make sure he has his gloves on so he doesn't bring no Rona home. Look at those shoes, by the way. Wow, he's going out in style, baby. Goodbye. All right, what do we have here? The Netflix and Chill Snuggie. Yes, he looks ready to binge watch hours of TV shows. And look at that. Oh, little kick action. Okay, so he's been doing the jump squats. A little sexy beast here.
Now, Stu, your favorite outfit was the Cowboys Snuggie.
No, I will say that seemed like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Although do I have an Eagles Snuggie? I may have an Eagles Snuggie.
I'm sure you have an Eagles Snuggie.
If I could purchase one, I would purchase one.
I'm sure that you would.
You know.
That's great, though. Like, I can't wait. Well, I just kind of wore my casual clothes to work today because it was Friday. But most of the time, Monday through Thursday, I can't wait to go home because I'm like, everyone else is working in their damn pajamas all day. I want to get back in my pajamas, too. So good job. Good on that, man.
I like it, too. And it's funny because he's wearing the gloves at that one point. and this has been such a fascinating thing to see. Like, even my wife has done this. She goes out to the store, she's got her gloves on. And they're saying that, like, this is apparently not at all good for the coronavirus and that, like, the stuff could get on the gloves.
Yeah.
And then bring the gloves back and then it getting all over whatever you're touching.
You're still bringing it home.
And this is the same thing with this is finally getting rid of these stupid reusable shopping bags.
Don't take your reusable shopping bag. That's what they're saying.
So funny.
It's funny. It's so many backfires, right? Tucker Carlson has a guy on his show regularly now that wears these purple sweatpants, right? Every day. But he wears one pair of, you should look into that. You showed me the pants thing. Can I do a social shout out to all the moms?
Sure.
Homeschooling at the moment.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old said, Dad, I want you to take Wonder Woman on the show. This is Wonder Woman, guys. And she said, I'll keep Superman. Tell all the moms, my 5-year-old said, tell all the moms they're Wonder Women for homeschooling. So moms out there, you're Wonder Woman. My 5-year-old says, and shout out to my wife, you're Wonder Woman, so are you. So thank you all the moms for doing a great job.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've gotten my wife a jet too, but it's invisible, so she can't, unfortunately.
Oh, gosh.
You can't find it. But you can tell her, honey, it's in the front lawn.
Trust me, I got one for her.
Really?
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you could have upgraded to like the non-invisible one.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep it pure to the Wonder Woman example.
Low-key.
So we went with it. Yeah.
Blend in.
I mean, really, how is she doing? Because she's a very good friend of mine, and we've talked recently, but we kind of swapped stories of how hard it is right now.
It is really been hard on her. I mean, part of this is that my wife is very, very social. So, like, she, believe me, that's the only reason I run into anybody outside of work is because I have to go with her to go see people. I would be I would be quarantined all the time. But she's very social and like really likes human interaction and likes talking to people and likes seeing them and going out with her friends and the kids playing together, and having to turn that off has been really, really hard for her. And then, add on the schoolwork. She keeps talking about there's so much work they're sending home, so much work. Yeah. It's like, well, they're not sending home homework. Right. You can't compare it to homework. They're sending home the entire day's curriculum for you to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
And we have the kids in a private school, and it's like we're paying. And I can tell from their perspective, they're like, we better give them a full day, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like these two things are fighting against each other. Look, if we wanted to homeschool, we would have homeschooled.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for her, to have to adjust and everything. And I think, not to mention, like the whole world feels like it's falling apart. It's stressful on everybody. And then you're throwing tens of millions of people into a homeschooling situation that they didn't really sign up for. It's a lot of pressure on moms right now.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. God bless all you moms. Hopefully you'll get some help here on the weekend. Back in a minute.
Not from us, though. We're going to be. I got other things to do.
Do you?
Yeah.
My school sent home a suggested schedule. All right, this was an interesting poll yesterday. The poll was who would win in a fight. Stu, the options were Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, or Corn Pop.
Oh, come on. Corn Pop's got to win this.
Who was a bad dude. He did not win this.
No?
No, Donald Trump won this.
Yes,
obviously.
I won. Corn Pop's a fiction of Joe's imagination.
Corn Pop did get 25%, and I think that's what their argument was like we're not totally sure that Corn Pop is real. Yeah. Therefore, he probably can't win.
He's as real as the kids that used to go under the water and play with his leg hair. I feel like those I think it was the same speech that he made that comment.
I trust the leg hair kids more.
Wow, that's controversial.
Today's poll. Will the COVID response bill ultimately help or hurt America long term? There's the key phrase right there. Long term, help or hurt. When has a stimulus bill ever helped long term?
Yeah, I
pay that back sometime.
I'm not a fan of these long term. I mean, look, this is a rare example where you could understand why they have to do something, but we know so much crap was jammed into this.
Right.
Long term is going to be a disaster.
Yeah, Yaku.
I don't think long term is good.
Yeah.
I don't.
Short term, you stop the burn.
It's going to feel good, but again, it's like just what medicine would we have to take down the road that we didn't know is in there right now?
Right. Well, let us know what you think. Happy Friday. You can go to the Blaze's Twitter. That is @TheBlaze. We'll see you Monday.